They say the lantern guides the lost, but here...
I never thought I'd spend my 32nd birthday hiding in a concrete box underneath what used to be my neighbor's backyard workshop. But here I am, breathing recycled air and listening to the shuffle of dead feet somewhere above me, trying to remember what fresh coffee smelled like. My name is Vaughn Kellerman, and I've been underground for 47 days. The shelter wasn't mine. Hell, I didn't even know Derek Pembrose had built the thing until the day everything went sideways. Derek was one of those guys. You know the type. Kept to himself mostly, always working on something in that corrugated steel workshop behind his house. I'd wave when I saw him at the mailbox. He'd nod. That was the extent of our relationship for 3 years. Then came October 19th. I was supposed to be at work. Should have been sitting in my cubicle at Henderson Financial, processing loan applications and pretending to care about quarterly projections. Instead, I'd called in sick because I'd spent the previous night helping my buddy Leith move his ex-girlfriend's stuff out of his apartment. And we'd killed a bottle of bourbon in the process. My head felt like someone had packed it with wet sand. I was on my couch, half watching some morning news show with the sound low, when the emergency broadcast came through. Not the test, the real thing. That horrible tone that makes your spine go rigid. The anchor's face was wrong. Pale. Sweating. She kept looking off camera like she wanted permission to run. Reports are coming in from multiple locations across the metro area of violent attacks. Authorities are advising residents to remain indoors and await further instructions. If you encounter someone displaying aggressive behavior or appearing severely ill, do not approach. I repeat, do not approach. The feed cut out. Just went to static. I sat up, hangover forgotten. Pulled out my phone. Text messages were flooding in. My sister Hollis. Are you seeing this? Call me. Leith. Dude, turn on the news. My mom. Vaughn, please call me right now. I tried calling. Circuit's busy. Every single number. That's when I heard the screaming. Not from my TV. From outside. I went to my front window. I lived in a ranch-style rental on Bridgemont Avenue. Nothing fancy. The kind of neighborhood where everyone kept their lawns neat and nobody talked much. And looked out through the blinds. Mrs. Raubser Kelby from 3 houses down was running up the middle of the street. She was 60-something, always wore those velour tracksuits, had a little white dog named Buttons. She was running like I'd never seen anyone run, bare feet slapping pavement, screaming words I couldn't make out. Behind her, moving with this awful jerking speed, was Mr. Kelby. Except it wasn't Mr. Kelby anymore. His jaw hung wrong. His shirt was soaked with something dark. His eyes were white, clouded over like old milk. And he was fast. Faster than any person his age should be able to move. He caught his wife at the Hendersons' driveway. I'm not going to describe what happened next. I can't. Even now, 47 days later, when I close my eyes, I see it. The sound she made. The way he just kept. I stumbled back from the window. My hands were shaking. This wasn't real. This was some kind of mass hysteria thing, some bad drug in the water supply, some... More screaming. Different voice? Closer? I looked again. Jenna Pritchard, who lived in the apartment complex at the end of the street, was sprinting across the Morelli's lawn. Behind her were 3 more of those things. One of them was wearing a mailman's uniform. My brain finally kicked into gear. Lock the doors. That was the first thought. Lock everything. I ran through my house, checking every window latch, both doors, even the door to the garage. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I kept dropping the locks, having to try again. The power was still on. I turned on every news channel. They were all the same. Chaos. Conflicting information. Stay inside. Seek shelter. The infection spreads through bites. No. Through blood contact. No. Through saliva. The infected are deceased. No, they're alive but diseased. Avoid major population centers. Emergency services are overwhelmed. And then, this is not a riot. This is not a protest. The individuals attacking civilians are deceased. They are not responsive to verbal commands or pain compliance. Aim for the head. Repeat, aim for the head. That's when I knew my life as I'd known it was over. I spent the next hour doing things that seemed reasonable in the moment. I filled my bathtub with water. I pulled all the canned food from my cabinets and put it on the kitchen counter. I found a hammer in my utility drawer. A hammer. Like that was going to help me against dead people who wanted to eat me. The sounds outside got worse. Car alarms, more screaming. Gunshots, actual gunshots, getting closer. Something heavy crashed into something else. Glass breaking, a car engine revving too high, then a terrible crunch of impact. I got low and crawled to the front window again. The street looked like a movie set. Bodies lying in yards. Blood on the pavement, still wet and dark. One of those things was crouched over something in the Talbert's driveway. Its back to me, its shoulders working in a rhythmic motion that made my stomach heave. A truck came tearing around the corner, going at least 50 in a 25 zone. It was a big pickup, jacked up on oversized tires. It didn't even try to brake. Just plowed straight through two of those things in the intersection, their bodies making sounds like wet bags of meat hitting metal. The truck fishtailed, recovered, and kept going. More of those things emerged from between houses, drawn by the noise. They moved in this awful way, lurching but fast, like their joints didn't quite work right, but their muscles were overpowered. I counted 11 of them in my immediate line of sight. My neighborhood. My quiet, boring neighborhood where the most exciting thing that happened was when the Bakers got divorced last spring. I needed to think. I crawled away from the window and sat with my back against the wall, trying to make a plan. Food, I had maybe 2 weeks if I stretched it. Water, the bathtub and whatever came from the taps before the pumps failed. Defense, my hammer and a couple of kitchen knives. Transportation, my car was in the garage. But the garage door was electric, and if the power went out, I'd have to open it manually. And the noise would draw every one of those things in a 3-block radius. This was bad. This was really, really bad. I spent that first night sitting in my hallway with all the lights off, listening to the chaos outside slowly die down. Not because things got better, because there was nobody left to scream. Around 3 in the morning, something started pounding on my front door. I froze, stopped breathing. The hammer was in my hand, but it felt pathetically small. The pounding continued, regular, insistent, not frantic. That was the scary part. It was almost methodical. Then a voice. Anyone alive in there? Human. Definitely human. I crawled to the door. Who is it? Name's Derek. I'm from 3 houses down, the workshop. You need to get out of there. These houses aren't secure. Derek Pembrose, my quiet neighbor with the workshop. How do I know you're not one of them? Christ, man, I'm talking to you, aren't I? Those things don't talk. They just scream and bite. Now, open up or don't. But I'm not standing out here much longer. I looked through the peephole. Dark, but I could make out a shape. He was holding something. A crowbar, maybe. Against every horror movie instinct I'd ever developed, I opened the door. Derek Pembrose was 50-something, gray beard, wearing cargo pants and a flannel shirt. He had a hunting rifle slung over his shoulder and blood on his hands. You're Vaughn, right? Rental 3 houses down. Yeah. You armed? I held up my hammer. He looked at it. Looked at me. Okay. Better than nothing. Listen, I've got a shelter. Built it myself. It's got supplies, air filtration, the works. But I can't carry everything I need by myself and my wife. His voice caught. My wife didn't make it, so I'm offering. You help me get some stuff from my house. You can use the shelter. Otherwise, you've got maybe 2 more days before those things figure out how to get in here, or before you run out of water, whichever comes first. Why me? Because you're alive, and you're 3 houses away, and I don't have time to be picky. What's it going to be? I looked back at my living room, my couch, my TV, my normal life. Give me 2 minutes. I grabbed my backpack and threw in whatever seemed useful. Clothes, canned food, batteries, my phone charger, even though the cell networks were already dead. My wallet, because even in the apocalypse, I couldn't quite let go of my identity. We left through my back door. Derek moved quietly for a big guy, keeping low, checking corners. The neighborhood looked different at night. Darker. The street lights were still on, but they just made the shadows deeper. I saw my first one up close in the Morelli's backyard. It had been Mr. Morelli. I'd talked to him about his tomato plants just last week. Now his face was gray, and his mouth was opening and closing like he was trying to remember how to form words. His eyes were clouded, pupils blown wide. He turned toward us. Derek didn't hesitate, just swung the crowbar in a clean arc that connected with the side of Mr. Morelli's skull. The sound was worse than I expected, wet and crunchy. The thing dropped. Keep moving, Derek whispered. Don't stop. Don't look at them. They're not people anymore. We made it to his property. The house was dark, but the workshop behind it had a dim light showing through one high window. Derek unlocked the workshop door and ushered me inside. Help me move this. This was a heavy workbench. We slid it aside, revealing a hatch in the concrete floor. Derek pulled it open, metal ladder leading down into darkness. There's a light switch at the bottom. Get down there. I need to grab some things from the house. You're leaving me here? 5 minutes. If I'm not back, close the hatch and don't open it for anyone. He must have seen my face because he added, I've been preparing for something like this for 15 years. Not zombies specifically, but collapse. Economic, environmental, doesn't matter. The shelter's got what you need to survive. Instructions are on the wall. If I don't make it back, it's yours. Then he was gone. I climbed down the ladder, found the switch. Fluorescent lights flickered on, revealing a space about 15 by 20 feet. Concrete walls. Metal shelves stocked with supplies, a small cot, a chemical toilet in one corner, buckets of sealed food, water barrels, a radio, air vents in the ceiling with filters. It was beautiful. I heard noises above, footsteps, something crashing. My heart hammered. I stood at the bottom of the ladder, looking up at that square of darkness, waiting. 5 minutes became 10. I was reaching up to close the hatch when Derek's face appeared. He was breathing hard, blood running down his face from a cut on his forehead. Help me with this. He started lowering boxes down. I grabbed them as they came. Canned goods, more water, medical supplies, a shotgun, and a box of shells. What happened? 3 of them in my kitchen. Got one. The other 2, doesn't matter, I'm here. He climbed down, pulled the hatch closed above him, and threw a bolt I hadn't noticed. The sound of it sliding home was the most comforting thing I'd heard in 12 hours. We sat there in the fluorescent light, breathing hard, not talking. Thank you, I finally said. Derek wiped blood from his face with his sleeve. Don't thank me yet. We don't know how long this lasts. Could be days, could be months. You might end up hating me before this is over. That was 47 days ago. Derek lasted 9 days. It was the cut on his forehead. He said one of them had scratched him, barely got him, nothing to worry about. But on day 7, he started running a fever. By day 8, he couldn't stand up without help. Day 9, he was gone. He knew what was happening, made me promise I'd take care of it once he turned, made me promise I wouldn't hesitate. I kept that promise. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, and I did it with the crowbar because I couldn't bring myself to waste a shell. He turned about 2 hours after he stopped breathing. I was ready. I had to be. I wrapped him in a tarp and put him in the corner of the shelter. I couldn't get him up the ladder by myself, and I wasn't about to open that hatch at night. The next morning, I hauled him up, opened the workshop door just wide enough, and rolled him out into the tall grass behind the building. I said a few words. I'm not religious, but it felt wrong not to. Then I went back down into my concrete box and tried to figure out how to survive alone. The shelter is well designed. I'll give Derek that. The air system is entirely mechanical, no electricity required. There's a hand crank that cycles fresh air through a series of filters. 20 minutes of cranking provides about 4 hours of breathable air. It's exhausting, but it beats suffocating. Water is the bigger problem. The barrels hold about 80 gallons total. That's drinking, cooking, washing. I've gotten strict with myself. 1 gallon per day. That's it. I don't wash unless absolutely necessary. I've learned to function while feeling constantly grimy. Food is plentiful, relatively speaking. Derek had beans, rice, canned vegetables, canned meat, dried fruit, nuts, protein powder, vitamin supplements. If I'm careful, I've got supplies for 6 months, maybe longer. But the psychological weight of eating the same rotation of meals every day is heavier than I expected. Breakfast, oatmeal or protein shake. Lunch, canned soup or beans with rice. Dinner, whatever canned meat I can stomach with more rice. I keep a routine because without it, I'd lose my mind. I wake up when my watch says 6 a.m., even though down here there's no day or night, just constant fluorescent light or darkness, depending on what I choose. I do exercises, push-ups, sit-ups, squats, in the small space available. I crank the air system. I eat breakfast. I listen to the radio. The radio is my window to the world, what's left of it. Most channels are dead air or emergency broadcast loops that haven't been updated in weeks. But a few stations are still running, manned by people who either found secure locations or just decided to keep broadcasting until the end. There's a guy on 104.7 FM who calls himself Redmond. Just Redmond, no last name. He broadcasts every evening at 8 p.m., when presumably the infected are less active. He shares news, rumors, tips for survival. His voice is the only human contact I've had since Derek died. This is Redmond, broadcasting from somewhere in the metro area, day 54 of the outbreak. If you're hearing this, you're alive. It's worth something. Remember that. It's worth something. His broadcasts are what keep me tethered. Proof that other people are out there, struggling just like me. According to Redmond, the military tried to establish safe zones in the first week. Most of them fell. Too many people, not enough security, panic. The infection spread through the camps faster than wildfire. Now the official government response seems to be regional quarantine zones with shoot-on-sight orders for anyone trying to cross. The outbreak started in the hospitals, they think. Some kind of aggressive pathogen. Details are fuzzy. Could have been natural. Could have been manufactured, could have been someone's nightmare virus escaping a lab. Doesn't really matter now. The result is the same. The infected, I refuse to call them zombies. That feels too much like a movie, and this is horrifyingly real. Don't decompose like normal corpses. Something about the pathogen preserves the tissue, keeps the body functional. They're driven by basic impulses: hunger, response to noise and movement. They can run, climb, even figure out simple obstacles if they're motivated enough. Headshots work. Severe brain trauma. That's the only reliable way to stop them. Anything else, and they keep coming. The first time I had to go outside, I waited until day 15. My water was getting low. Derek had mentioned a rain collection system on the workshop roof, but I'd need to go up and check it. I spent 3 days preparing. I sharpened a knife. I loaded the shotgun and practiced the feel of it. I chose clothes that wouldn't snag: dark jeans, a black hoodie, work boots. I picked a time, 4 a.m., when it would still be dark, but I'd have a few hours before full dawn. The plan was simple: climb out, check the roof, get back inside. 10 minutes, maximum. I cranked the air for an extra cycle. Checked the hatch bolt 3 times. Put my ear against the metal, listening. Nothing. No footsteps, no moaning. Just silence. I cracked the hatch an inch. More silence. The workshop was dark. I pushed it open fully and climbed out fast, shotgun in one hand. The workshop was undisturbed. Tools still on their pegs. Derek's coffee mug still on the workbench, mold growing in the dried dregs. I moved to the door, looked out through the small window. The world outside was wrong. I'd been underground for 2 weeks, and everything had changed. The grass was overgrown, mail had piled up in boxes, cars sat abandoned in driveways, doors open, contents spilled out. The Hendersons' house had burned, just a black shell now, roof caved in. And everywhere, the signs of the infected. Dark stains on pavement, drag marks, bodies in various states of decay. One of those things was shambling down the middle of the street. It had been a woman, young, wearing the tattered remains of a nurse's uniform. She moved aimlessly, head swiveling, looking for stimulation. I stayed frozen, barely breathing. She wandered past, didn't notice me. I waited 5 full minutes after she disappeared around the corner. Then I slipped outside. The rain collection system was a series of gutters feeding into a 50-gallon drum on the north side of the workshop. I'd need to get onto the roof to check if the filters were clogged. There was a ladder. Of course there was a ladder. Derek had thought of everything. I climbed as quietly as possible. Every small sound, my boot on a rung, my jacket brushing the side of the building, felt like a siren. I kept looking around, scanning for movement. The roof was flat, covered in tar paper. The collection system looked functional. The drum was about half full. Decent rainwater would need to be purified, but that was doable. I checked the filters. Some debris, nothing major. I cleared what I could. That's when I heard it. Below me, in the workshop, scratching, at the door. I flattened myself against the roof and crawled to the edge. Looked down. 3 of them. 1 male, 2 female. They were at the workshop door, pawing at it, pushing against it. The male kept grabbing the handle, pulling, not understanding how to turn it, but working on pure, persistent instinct. My heart was slamming against my ribs. If they got inside, they'd find the hatch. They couldn't open it, but they'd be right there waiting. I had the shotgun. I could shoot them from up here. But the noise would draw more. I waited. 5 minutes. 10. My muscles were screaming from holding the prone position. Finally, one of them made a sound. This low moan that seemed to come from deep in its chest. The others responded. Then they shuffled away, moving toward whatever stimulus had caught their attention. I gave them another 10 minutes. Then I climbed down, fast and silent, got back inside the workshop, and practically fell down the ladder into the shelter. I locked the hatch and sat there shaking for an hour. That night I made a decision. I couldn't stay in this shelter forever. Eventually I'd run out of something critical. Food, water, sanity. I needed a plan beyond simple survival. I needed to understand the situation topside. I needed to scout, to map the area, to find resources, to maybe, and this felt almost impossible, find other survivors. But I'd need to be smarter than that first outing. I spent the next week preparing. I made a spear from a broken shovel handle and a knife lashed to the end with paracord. I put together a pack with supplies: water, food, basic medical kit, flashlight, rope. I found a bicycle in the workshop, Derek's old mountain bike, and made sure the tires were inflated. I started going out at dawn. Same routine each time. Scout from the roof first. Listen for 10 minutes. Look for patterns in how the infected moved. I learned things. They were more active at dusk and dawn. Something about those transitional times seemed to stir them up. Middle of the day, they slowed down, seeking shade. Full night, they were mobile, but seemed less focused, wandering rather than hunting. They responded to sound more than sight. If I stayed quiet, stayed low, I could move past them at a distance. They congregated in certain areas, near the main roads, near anywhere there had been high foot traffic. They avoided enclosed spaces unless drawn by noise. On day 23, I made my first real supply run. Target, the corner store 4 blocks away. Small place, family-owned, probably picked over, but maybe still holding something useful. I left at 4:30 a.m., the dead hour when even the infected seemed sluggish. I rode the bike slowly, coasting when possible, staying on grass to muffle the tire noise. The neighborhood looked post-apocalyptic in a way that still shocked me. Nature was already reclaiming things. Vines growing over cars, weeds cracking through pavement. A tree had fallen across the road 2 blocks down, completely blocking it. I passed 6 infected, gave them wide berths. They didn't notice me. The corner store's windows were smashed. The door hung open. I approached carefully, spear ready. Inside was chaos. Shelves tipped over, products scattered everywhere, dried blood on the floor. The smell was incredible, rot and decay, and something sweet that made me gag. But the back room, the storage area, was relatively untouched. People had focused on the front displays during the initial panic. The storage room still had cases of water, canned goods, batteries, toilet paper, which felt almost luxurious after weeks of carefully rationing what Derek had stored. I filled my backpack, made multiple trips, stashing supplies in a drainage ditch outside before making the run back to the workshop. 3 trips total. I got everything back to the shelter by noon. That night, I ate canned peaches and felt like a king. The supply runs became routine. I mapped out a circuit of locations within biking distance. A pharmacy, a hardware store, a small grocery. Houses that looked like they might have useful items. I developed a system. Scout from a distance first. Watch for movement. Listen. If clear, approach quickly. Get in. Grab what I need, get out. Never stay longer than 10 minutes. Never get greedy. The pharmacy was a gold mine. Antibiotics, pain medication, bandages, vitamins. I took everything I could carry. I also grabbed personal items, deodorant, soap, toothpaste. Maintaining basic hygiene became a morale booster. I found propane tanks at the hardware store, a camping stove, water purification tablets, duct tape, rope. Tools I didn't know I'd need, but might. At the grocery store, mostly stripped bare, I hit the stockroom and found industrial-sized bags of rice and beans, enough to extend my food supply by months. I was getting confident, maybe too confident. Day 31. I decided to check out a house at the end of Millbrook Street. Big place, 2-story colonial, looked like the kind of family that would have a well-stocked pantry. I approached at dawn. Did my usual check. No movement. Quiet. The back door was unlocked. I slipped inside. The kitchen was destroyed, table overturned, chairs broken, dark stains everywhere. I tried not to think about what had happened here. The pantry was a mess, but still had goods. I was loading my pack when I heard it. Upstairs, floorboards creaking. I froze. The creaking continued. Slow, irregular. Something was up there. I should have left. That was the smart play. But I'd seen a case of bottled water in the garage through a window, and I needed water. The barrels were getting low again. I moved to the garage door, opened it slowly. The hinges squeaked, loud in the silence. The creaking upstairs stopped. I grabbed 2 cases of water, moving fast now, knowing I'd made noise and needed to get out. Something thumped. Above me. Then again, closer to the stairs. I ran, out through the back door, across the yard, to where I'd left the bike. I could hear it behind me now, the awful sound of those things in pursuit, that ragged breathing, that hungry moan. I threw the water cases into the bike's basket, mounted and pedaled. It came around the side of the house, fast, sprinting. It had been a teenage kid, maybe 16, still wearing a high school leather jacket. Its face was gray, mouth open, eyes white and wild. I pedaled harder. The bike chain clanked. The infected teen was keeping pace. I hit the street, standing up on the pedals, putting everything into speed. The thing was 10 feet behind me. 5 feet. It lunged. Fingers grabbed my backpack. I felt the jolt, felt myself slowing. I twisted, swung my arm back, connected with something. The grip released. I pulled ahead. It chased me for 2 full blocks before finally giving up, standing in the middle of the street, howling its frustration. I didn't stop pedaling until I was back at the workshop. I threw the bike inside, climbed down into the shelter, and locked the hatch. My hands were shaking so badly, I could barely hold my water bottle. That was close. Too close. I forced myself to wait 3 days before going out again. Use the time to reinforce my rules. Never get greedy. Never stay too long. Always have an exit planned. The isolation was getting to me. I'd been alone for over a month. I talked to myself constantly just to hear a human voice. I'd have full conversations, playing both parts. Think we should check the Walgreens on 5th? Nah, too exposed. That parking lot is wide open. Good point. Maybe the little clinic on Maple instead. Better option, more cover. I knew it was unhealthy, but I couldn't stop. Redmond's broadcasts became my anchor to sanity. Every night at 8 p.m., I'd turn on the radio and listen to his voice. Day 41. Still here, still breathing. Had a close call today. Group of infected at my door. 20 of them, maybe more. They eventually moved on, but it was touch and go for a while. Remember, folks, noise discipline is everything. Stay quiet, stay alive. He'd share tips. How to purify water using bleach. How to make noise traps to distract infected. How to recognize signs of infection early. where different survivor groups were reported to be. He mentioned a settlement near the old industrial district. 30 or 40 people, barricaded in a warehouse complex. They had power, running water, defenses. The idea of being around people again was intoxicating. But the industrial district was 15 miles away, through unknown territory, across areas that could be swarming with infected. I wasn't ready for that. Not yet. Day 38, I found a body in the street 3 blocks from the workshop. Fresh, still bleeding, a man, maybe 40, gunshot wound to the chest. He had a rifle next to him, backpack still on. He'd been running from something or toward something. I checked the area, no infected in immediate sight. I approached the body. His eyes were open, staring at nothing. He'd been dead maybe an hour. The backpack was full of supplies, good supplies, canned food, ammunition, a water filter, a detailed map of the metro area with notations in pen. I took everything. Felt guilty about it, but not guilty enough to leave it. He didn't need it anymore. The map was incredible. It showed safe routes, areas marked as heavy activity, locations marked with symbols I had to interpret. A house with a cross meant medical supplies. A house with an X meant dangerous or compromised. Someone had put serious work into this map. This dead man had been organized, prepared, and something had killed him anyway. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about him, wondering what his story was, if he had people waiting for him somewhere, if his death would even matter to anyone. Day 40, I decided to scout further out. I'd been staying within 6 blocks of the workshop. Safe, but limiting. I needed to understand the bigger picture. I took the bike and the map. Planned a route that would take me in a wide loop through the neighborhoods to the east, then back. The further I got from my area, the worse things looked. Entire blocks burned down. Cars piled up in intersections like someone had tried to make barricades. Bodies everywhere, most of them rotted down to bones and rags. And infected. Lots of them. I counted at least 50 in the space of an hour. They were concentrated around a shopping plaza. Something about that area was drawing them. Maybe the concentration of smells. Maybe they retained some dim memory of gathering places. I gave it wide berth. Found a neighborhood that looked relatively clear. Nice houses. Some damage, but not catastrophic. I picked one at random and went inside. The first floor was trashed. The second floor was untouched. I found a bedroom that looked like it had belonged to a girl, maybe 10 or 11. Posters on the walls, stuffed animals on the bed, a desk with homework papers still laid out, math problems. She'd been working on fractions. I sat on the floor and cried. First time since this all started, just sat there and sobbed because this little girl had been doing her homework and then the world ended, and where was she now? Was she dead? Infected? Scared and hiding somewhere? I pulled myself together. Searched the house, found more supplies, got back on the bike. The ride home was quiet. I was so lost in thought I almost didn't notice the truck. It came from a side street, moving slow, deliberate. A big pickup, windows covered in metal grating. Survivors. I nearly called out, nearly waved them down. But something stopped me. Maybe the way the truck was moving, predatory, searching, maybe instinct. I ducked behind a car and watched. The truck stopped in the middle of the street. 2 men got out. They were armed, rifles, tactical vests. They didn't move like they were scared of infected. They moved like hunters. They went into a house, came out 5 minutes later carrying boxes, loading them into the truck bed, looting, but organized, methodical. They hit 3 more houses on that street before driving off. I waited until they were gone before continuing home. That night on the radio, Redmond warned about marauders. Getting reports of armed groups targeting survivors, taking supplies by force. They know people are holed up, vulnerable. Stay hidden. Don't advertise your location. Don't trust anyone you don't know. Desperation makes people dangerous. I thought about the dead man with the map, the gunshot wound. Maybe infected weren't the only thing I needed to worry about. Day 45. I found a car with keys still in it. A Honda sedan, 4-door, nearly full tank of gas. It was parked in a garage 4 blocks away, untouched by the chaos. I knew immediately what this meant. Mobility, range, the ability to transport larger loads of supplies, but also noise, attention, risk. I spent 2 days thinking about it. The bike was quiet but limited. The car was loud but capable. Finally decided the risk was worth it. I spent the next morning doing maintenance. Changed the oil. Derek's workshop had supplies. Checked the tires, the belts, the fluids. The car was in good shape. The owners had taken care of it right up until they either died or fled. I loaded supplies into the trunk. Emergency bag, water, weapons, tools. Made it ready for a quick departure if necessary. Then I started using it for runs. Short trips at first, just to the pharmacy and back, getting used to driving in this new world. The roads were obstacle courses, abandoned vehicles everywhere. Some streets completely blocked. I had to memorize routes, backup routes, emergency escape routes. The noise was a problem. Every infected within 2 blocks would turn toward the sound of the engine. I learned to drive fast, not stopping, keeping windows up, doors locked. If something was in the road, I'd swerve around it, or if necessary, push through it. I hit my first infected on day 47. Couldn't avoid it. It stumbled into the road right in front of me. I heard the thump, felt the car jolt, kept driving. Checked the rearview mirror and saw it thrashing on the ground, broken but still moving. That image stuck with me. These things didn't stop, didn't give up. Even destroyed, they kept trying. The car opened up new possibilities. I could reach the big box stores on the highway, could check out the suburban developments further out, could potentially make it to that survivor settlement Redmond kept mentioning. But first, I needed more fuel. Gas stations were dangerous, open spaces, multiple approaches, usually bodies. But fuel was finite and my tank was showing 3/4. I picked a station on the edge of town. Small place, 2 pumps. Convenience store attached. Arrived at dawn. Scoped it out for 15 minutes. Saw 4 infected near the tree line across the street, but none right at the station. I pulled up to the pump. The power was obviously out, so the electric pumps were dead. But I'd prepared for this. I had a siphon kit I'd grabbed from an auto parts store. The station's underground tanks would still have fuel. I just needed to access them. I found the tank access covers behind the building, used a crowbar to pop one open. Dropped the siphon hose down. Started the manual pump. Gas started flowing into my cans. I'd brought 4 5-gallon containers, 20 gallons total. The pumping was loud. The slosh of fuel, the creak of the hand pump. Each sound felt like it was broadcasting my location. I filled 1 can, started on the second. That's when I heard them. Multiple sets of feet, shambling, moving toward me. I looked up. 6 of them coming around the corner of the building. They'd been inside the convenience store. I kept pumping. The second can was half full. I needed to make a choice. Take what I had and run, or risk the extra 30 seconds to finish the can. I kept pumping, watched the infected get closer. 20 feet, 15, the can filled. I slammed the cap on, grabbed both cans, 40 pounds of fuel, and ran for the car. One of them was fast. It lunged. I swung a gas can at it. The weight connected with its skull. It went down. I threw the cans in the trunk, jumped in the driver's seat, started the engine. More infected were converging from across the street. I backed up fast, swung the car around, and accelerated out of the lot. Something grabbed the passenger door handle. An infected that had gotten close. It held on for a moment, feet dragging, before its grip failed and it fell away. I drove for 3 blocks before pulling over. Hands shaking on the wheel. 10 gallons of gas. Nearly died for 10 gallons of gas. But it was worth it. That fuel meant freedom. Options. That night I calculated. The car got about 30 miles per gallon. With what I had, I could make a long-distance trip. Could reach the industrial district. Could try to find that settlement. But leaving the shelter meant abandoning my secure base, my supplies, everything Derek had built. I wasn't ready for that decision yet. Days started blurring together. 48, 49, 50. My routine became mechanical. Wake, exercise, crank air, eat, listen to radio, scout from roof, supply run if needed, return, eat, radio, sleep, repeat. The sameness was crushing. Same walls, same tasks, same fear. I started marking the walls. Tallies. 1 line for each day. Then I started adding notes. Found antibiotics. Close call at grocery. Rain. Anything to make the days feel distinct. I tried to remember what my life had been like before. My job, my apartment, the fact that I could just go to a restaurant if I wanted food, turn on a faucet and have clean water, call someone if I was lonely. All of it felt like a dream, like none of it had been real. This was real. This concrete box, this constant fear, this grinding survival. On day 52, something changed. I was on the roof of the workshop at dawn doing my usual scan when I saw smoke, not nearby, miles away. But smoke meant fire. Fire meant either accident or intention. Intention meant people. I watched it for an hour. It was coming from the direction of the industrial district. The smoke rose straight up in the morning calm. Too much smoke for a small fire. A building? Multiple buildings? That night, Redmond's broadcast was different. This is Redmond, broadcasting from, I don't know if I can keep this up, the settlement in the industrial district. It's gone. Overrun this morning. Too many infected. They swarmed the fences. I'm getting reports of maybe 10 survivors who made it out. Maybe. I can't verify. His voice cracked. 38 people were in there. 38 people trying to rebuild. And now they're gone. Just gone. The broadcast ended early that night. I sat in the shelter staring at the radio. 38 people. A community. Defenses. And the infected had overwhelmed them anyway. What chance did I have alone? I made a decision. I needed to change my strategy. Staying in this shelter indefinitely wasn't sustainable. Eventually, something would run out or break down. I needed a longer-term solution. Option 1, find another survivor group. Join up. Safety in numbers. Option 2, fortify a better location. The shelter was secure but limited. Maybe there was somewhere better. Option 3, leave the city entirely. Head for rural areas. Lower population density might mean fewer infected. Each option had massive risks. But staying put had risks too. I spent the next week gathering intelligence. I drove around in the car, mapping large sections of the city, noting where infected congregated, where roads were clear, where potential safe locations might be. I found a fire station that looked intact. a library, a school built like a fortress. Each had potential, but also problems. The fire station had infected inside. I could see them through the windows. The library's water supply would be an issue. The school was too big to secure alone. I also watched for other survivors, signs of habitation, smoke during the day, lights at night, anything. I saw glimpses, a shadow moving on a roof, a flash of a flashlight in a window. Someone had spray painted "Alive at Mercy Hospital 5th floor" on an overpass. But making contact was dangerous. Day 58. I decided to check out the hospital. Mercy Hospital was a 10-story building downtown. Getting there meant driving through areas I'd avoided. High density, lots of potential infected. I went prepared. Full tank of gas, both rifles, handgun, knife, backpack with supplies. I left a note in the shelter detailing my plan and route, just in case. If I didn't come back, at least there'd be a record. The drive took 40 minutes. I had to detour around blocked roads 3 times. Saw infected but didn't engage. Just drove past. The hospital came into view. The building was imposing, most of the windows broken, the parking lot full of abandoned ambulances and cars. I parked a block away, approached on foot. The front entrance was barricaded from the inside. Good sign. I walked around the perimeter, found a side entrance that was open. The door had been forced at some point. Inside was darkness. My flashlight beam cut through dusty air. The smell was overwhelming. Decay, chemical, the particular stench of a medical facility gone wrong. I found the stairs, started climbing, checked each floor carefully. 1, 2, 3, 4. Signs of violence everywhere. Blood, bodies, evidence of desperate last stands. 5th floor. The stairwell door was reinforced. Sheet metal and welding. Someone had put effort into this. I knocked. "Hello? Anyone here? I saw your message on the overpass." Silence. I knocked again. "I'm alive, not infected. Just looking for other survivors." Nothing. I waited 5 minutes. Started to turn away. That's when I heard it. The sound of metal scraping. The door opened a crack. An eye looked out at me. "Who are you?" Male voice, young, scared. "Name's Vaughn. I've been holed up in a shelter about 5 miles from here. Saw your message. Thought I'd check if you needed help or if there was a group here." The eye looked me over. "You alone?" "Yeah." "You bit? Scratched? Infected?" "No." A pause, then, "Wait there." The door closed. I heard voices inside, arguing, discussing. The door opened wider. A kid stood there, maybe 19, skinny, holding a baseball bat. "Come in, slowly. Keep your hands where I can see them." I complied. Behind the door was a makeshift fortress. The hallway was blocked with furniture, multiple doors sealed with barricades. The kid led me down the hall to a nurse's station. 3 other people waited there. A woman in her 40s, a man about my age, an older guy, 60-ish. "This is everyone?" I asked. The woman nodded. "We were 12, then 8, then 5, now 4. And you makes 5 again, if you're staying." "What happened?" The older man spoke. His voice was rough. "We lost people in the initial outbreak. Lost more trying to get supplies. Lost 2 when the infected breached the 3rd floor last week. We sealed it off, but it's only a matter of time before they figure out the stairs." "Why not leave? Find somewhere else?" "Where?" The woman laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Everywhere is compromised. At least here we're up high. We can see them coming. We have some medical supplies. Water from the roof tanks. It's not great, but it's something." I looked at them. Really looked at them. They were exhausted, starving. The kid had a bandage on his arm. The older man was limping. "I've got a shelter," I said. "It's small, underground, secure, well-stocked. It's not perfect, but it's better than this." They stared at me. "Why would you tell us that?" the woman asked. "Why not just leave?" Good question. I'd been alone for 58 days. These people were desperate. They could overpower me, take what I had. But I was tired of being alone, tired of talking to myself, tired of the silence. "Because I need help," I admitted. "There's things I can't do alone. And because you look like you need help too. Maybe we can do better together." They looked at each other. Some kind of silent communication happened. The woman extended her hand. "I'm Miriam. The kid is Finch. That's Niles. And the quiet one is Garrett." I shook her hand. "Vaughn, your shelter. Is it really secure?" "Best I've seen. Built by a prepper. Concrete, filtered air. Supplies for months if we're careful." "How do we know you're not lying? That this isn't some kind of trap?" "You don't. You have to decide if it's worth the risk." They discussed it, quietly. I waited. Finally, Miriam turned back to me. "We'll come see it. If it's what you say, we'll consider it. If it's not, well, we're armed and we will defend ourselves." Fair enough. We planned the move for the next morning. It would take 2 trips. I could only fit 3 people in the car at a time. We'd need to be fast and quiet. That night, I stayed at the hospital with them. They shared their food, crackers and canned soup, heated over a camp stove. We talked, shared stories about how we'd survived the initial outbreak, what we'd seen, who we'd lost. Garrett had lost his wife and daughter in the first week. Niles had been a pharmacist at this hospital and just never left. Finch had been a college freshman living in the dorms when everything collapsed. Miriam had been a paralegal, working late when the infection hit. We were just normal people. No soldiers, no survivalists, just people trying not to die. I told them about Derek, about the shelter, about my supply runs and close calls. "You've been doing this alone for almost 2 months, Miriam said. That's impressive." "It's exhausting," I corrected. "Every decision is mine. Every risk is mine. Every mistake could be the last one. Having people to work with? I don't know. Maybe it's stupidly optimistic, but I think our chances are better together." They agreed to give it a try. The next morning we loaded up. Miriam, Finch, and me in the first trip. We'd leave Niles and Garrett with the car keys. If we didn't come back in 3 hours, they could assume the worst. The drive back was tense. Every infected we passed felt like a potential disaster. But we made it. I pulled into the workshop, led them inside, showed them the hatch. "It's underground," Finch said. "Like a bunker." "Exactly like a bunker." I opened the hatch, climbed down. They followed. Miriam looked around, at the supplies, the cot, the air system, the organization. "This is real," she said softly. "It's real. There's room for 5 people. It'll be tight. We'll need to work out a schedule, but yeah, we can make it work." She started crying, just broke down. Finch put an arm around her. "It's okay," I said. "You're safe now." "We haven't been safe in so long," she whispered. I forgot what it felt like. We went back for Niles and Garrett. Second trip was smoother. We knew the route now, knew what to expect. By noon, all 5 of us were in the shelter. It was crowded. 5 people in a space designed for maybe 2. But it was manageable. We worked out a system that first day. Sleeping in shifts, meal rotation, air cranking duties, radio monitoring. Everyone had a role. Miriam took charge of inventory and rationing. Niles handled medical supplies and knowledge. Garrett, despite his age, was the most mechanically inclined. Finch became our scout, young, fast, good instincts. I stayed as primary supplier and defender. That night, we all listened to Redmond's broadcast together. Day 63. Still here, still surviving, getting reports of a new settlement forming near the state park. 20 people, maybe more. They're claiming to have sustainable resources: water, gardens, defenses. I can't verify this, but if you're mobile and looking for community, might be worth investigating. Be careful, be smart, stay alive. After the broadcast, we talked about it. Should we try to reach the state park? 20 people sounded like real civilization, but it was 30 miles away, through unknown territory. We decided to wait, establish our own stability first, build up supplies, learn to work together. Then we could consider bigger moves. The next few weeks were hard, adjusting to each other's presence. 5 people with different survival strategies, different fears, different breaking points. Finch had nightmares. Would wake up screaming. We'd take turns calming him down. Garrett's limp was from a torn meniscus. Niles did what he could, but without proper medical facilities, it wasn't healing right. Miriam had anxiety attacks. Couldn't handle being underground for too long. We'd take her up to the workshop during quiet times, let her see the sky. But we made it work. We ran supply operations as a team. 2 people out, 3 staying back, communication via walkie-talkies we'd found. Clear objectives, exit strategies. We hit a grocery store distribution center, found pallets of non-perishable food. Made multiple trips over 3 days, filling the shelter until we had to start storing supplies in the workshop. We raided a sporting goods store, found camping equipment, water filtration systems, more weapons, ammunition. We even found books, magazines, entertainment. The psychological value of having something to do besides survive was enormous. Day 75, we had our first real crisis. Finch went out on a solo scout, against protocol, but he insisted he could handle it, said he wanted to prove himself. He was supposed to be back by noon. 1 p.m. came and went. 2 p.m., 3. By 4 o'clock, we were preparing a search party. By 5, we were geared up and ready to go. That's when we heard the car. Engine loud, driving erratic. Finch came tearing into the workshop area. The car was damaged, blood on the hood. Finch's face was white with terror. "They're following me. They're right behind me." We pulled him inside. I looked out. A group of infected was shambling up the street. 15, 20. More emerging from between houses. They'd followed the noise of the car. "Get inside the shelter," I shouted. "Everyone down, now!" We scrambled down the ladder, pulled the hatch closed, bolted it. Above us, we could hear them. Dozens of footsteps, moaning, scratching at the workshop door. We waited in the dark, barely breathing, listening to the infected swarm above us. "I'm sorry," Finch whispered. "I'm so sorry." "What happened?" Miriam asked. I went further than I planned. Hit a neighborhood that looked clear, but it wasn't clear. They came out of everywhere. I barely made it to the car. "Did they see you come here?" "Do they know we're here?" "I don't know. Maybe. I wasn't thinking. I just ran." The noise above us continued for hours. The infected investigating the workshop, testing the door, scratching at walls. We sat in silence, weapons ready, waiting to see if they'd find a way in. Finally, around midnight, the noise diminished. The moaning faded. The footsteps moved away. but we knew they were still up there, waiting, lurking. We couldn't risk going up to check. We'd have to wait them out. Day 76 became day 77, then 78. We were trapped in the shelter with no way to know what was happening above. Our air supply became a concern. We cranked the system constantly, but with 5 people consuming oxygen, we were pushing its capacity. Water was rationed even tighter. Food became a careful calculation. On day 80, we made the decision. We had to risk going up. Garrett and I would go, armed with rifles and melee weapons. Check the situation. If clear, signal the others. We climbed the ladder, put our ears to the hatch. Silence. I slowly unlocked the bolt, cracked the hatch an inch, listened. Nothing. Opened it further. Looked around. The workshop was empty. Damaged. They'd knocked over shelves, broken tools, but empty. We climbed out, moved to the door, looked outside. The yard was clear. The street beyond showed signs of the horde. Broken fences, trampled grass. But no infected in sight. They'd moved on, either lost interest or found another stimulus elsewhere. We signaled the others. Everyone came up. The relief of being above ground, breathing fresh air, was overwhelming. But the damage was done. Our location was compromised. The infected had been here. They might come back. "We need to consider relocating," Miriam said. "Find somewhere better. Or fortify this place," Niles countered. "Make it stronger, better defenses." We debated, argued, weighed options. In the end, we decided to fortify. Moving meant abandoning supplies, risking travel. We knew this place. We could make it work. We spent the next week building defenses, fences around the workshop, noise traps to distract infected away from our location, reinforced the door, created multiple exit routes, including a tunnel we dug from the shelter to the neighboring property's abandoned garage. It was backbreaking work, but it gave us purpose. Day 90, 3 months since the outbreak. Redmond's broadcasts had become less frequent. Sometimes he'd miss a night. When he did broadcast, he sounded exhausted. Day 90, still here, barely. My location was compromised. I'm mobile now, broadcasting from wherever I can set up. The state park settlement, I haven't been able to confirm it. Could be real. Could be a rumor. Be careful who you trust. His voice had lost its optimism. He was surviving, but not living, just like the rest of us. We held a meeting that night, discussed our long-term prospects. "We can't stay here forever," Garrett said. "Eventually something will fail. The air system, our health, our sanity." "So what's the alternative?" Finch asked. "We find a permanent solution, a place we can actually defend long-term, maybe even start growing food, collecting rainwater reliably, building something sustainable. Like the settlement at the state park," Miriam said. "If it exists." "We could scout it," I offered. "Take the car, 2 of us, fast trip, see if it's real." They looked at me. "That's a 60-mile round trip through unknown territory," Niles said. "High risk." "Everything is high risk. But if there's a community out there, a real one, it might be worth it." We voted, 4 in favor, 1 abstaining. I would go. Garrett volunteered to come with me. We spent 3 days preparing, mapped the route using Garrett's old atlas and my salvaged GPS unit, loaded the car with fuel, weapons, supplies, made contingency plans. Day 93, we left at dawn. The drive was surreal, getting further from our shelter than I'd been since the outbreak, passing through neighborhoods I'd never seen. Each one told a story of how the infection had spread. Some areas were almost pristine. People had fled early, leaving everything intact. Others were war zones, Cars crashed and burned, buildings destroyed, bodies everywhere. We saw infected, lots of them. Stayed in the car, kept moving. A few times we had to detour around impassable roads. Once we had to push a car out of the way, working as fast as possible while infected shambled toward us from down the block. Made it to the highway. Fewer obstructions here, but more exposed. The infected seemed less concentrated on highways. Maybe something about the open space didn't appeal to whatever dim instinct drove them. We drove in silence, watching the landscape pass. The world looked different, emptier. Nature was reclaiming things faster than I'd imagined. Vines growing over signs, grass pushing through pavement cracks. Without humans maintaining it, everything was reverting. 2 hours into the drive, we saw the roadblock. Cars arranged across all lanes, deliberate. Someone had built this. Could be the settlement, Garrett said. Could be marauders. We slowed down, stopped 50 yards back. A figure appeared from behind the barricade, wearing tactical gear, holding a rifle. "That's close enough," a woman's voice. "State your business." I rolled down my window. "We're survivors, looking for the settlement near the state park." "You infected?" "No." "Prove it." "How?" "Get out of the car, slow, hands where I can see them." Garrett and I exchanged looks. This could be a trap, but we'd come this far. We got out, hands raised. The woman approached with 2 others behind her, all armed, all moving like they knew what they were doing. She looked us over. "Strip." "What?" "Strip. Shirts off. Show me you're not bit or scratched. You want access to the settlement, you follow our protocols." We complied. Stripped to the waist, turned around, let her inspect us. "They're clean," she said to her companions. Then to us, "Get dressed. You can pass through. The settlement is 3 miles north. Follow the signs. But I'm warning you, we've got rules. You break them, you're out. Permanently." "We understand," I said. She moved the barricade enough for our car to pass through. As we drove away, I watched her in the rearview mirror. She stayed at her post, rifle ready, watching until we were out of sight. "Professional," Garrett muttered. "Military? Maybe, or people who learned fast." We drove the 3 miles. The landscape changed, more trees, less development. State park territory. Then we saw it, the settlement. It was impressive. They'd used the state park's existing facilities, a visitor center, maintenance buildings, pavilions, and fortified them. Chain link fence topped with barbed wire, watchtowers, gates that could actually stop a horde. Inside I could see people moving around, living people, working, talking, living. We stopped at the main gate. Another checkpoint. More questions, more inspection. Finally, they let us through. A man in his 50s met us. He introduced himself as Roscoe, the settlement coordinator. "Welcome. You're the first new arrivals in 2 weeks. We're up to 43 people now. We've got housing, food production, water purification, even medical facilities. It's not perfect, but we're building something sustainable." He showed us around. The gardens where they were growing vegetables, the rain collection system, the radio equipment they used to communicate with other settlements. There were others, scattered across the region. It was civilization. Small, fragile, but real. "You're welcome to stay," Roscoe said. "We've got space. We need people. Everyone contributes. We've got work details, security rotations, supply runs. But you're safe here. Safer than out there." I thought about the shelter, about Miriam, Niles, and Finch waiting for us. "We've got 3 more people," I said. "Back where we've been holed up. Can they come too?" "Bring them. We'll make room. But they go through the same screening, same rules. Everyone pulls their weight. Garrett and I discussed it. This was real. This was what we'd been hoping existed. "We'll go back," I told Roscoe. "Get our people. We'll return in 3 days. I'll expect you. But be careful out there. We've seen increased infected activity lately. Something's drawing them north. Just be careful." We left the settlement, driving back with hope for the first time in months. The return trip was faster. We knew the route now, knew what to expect. We made it back to the workshop by evening. The others were waiting anxiously. "It's real," I said. "The settlement is real. We can go there, all of us." The relief on their faces was profound. We spent that night planning. We'd take everything we could carry, abandon the shelter but leave it marked. Maybe someday it would help someone else. We'd drive in one trip, all 5 of us, packed tight. Day 96, we loaded the car. It was strange leaving the shelter. It had kept me alive. Kept all of us alive. But it was time to move on. We locked the hatch one last time. Garrett spray-painted "Shelter Below, Supplies, 96 Days Survived" on the workshop wall, a message for whoever came after. Then we got in the car and drove away. The trip to the settlement felt different. We weren't just surviving anymore. We were heading towards something: community, future, hope. We hit one major obstacle: a horde of infected blocking the highway. At least 100 of them shambling in a mass. We couldn't go around, couldn't go through. "Back up," Garrett said. "Find another route." But as I started reversing, more infected appeared behind us. We were boxed in. "Out of the car!" Miriam shouted. "We fight!" We grabbed weapons and ran. The infected closed in from both sides. We fired, shot after shot. Bodies dropping, but more filling the gaps. Finch went down. An infected grabbed his leg. He screamed. I swung my rifle butt, cracked its skull, pulled him up. "Run, that way." Niles pointed to a gap in the fence along the highway. We sprinted. The infected followed, but they were slower in pursuit than in direct confrontation. We made it through the fence, across a field, into a cluster of trees. Behind us, the horde was still coming, but we'd gained distance. We ran until our lungs burned, finally collapsed in a drainage ditch, gasping for air. "The car," Finch panted. "All our supplies." "Forget it," I said. "We're alive. That's what matters." How do we get to the settlement now? Good question. We were maybe 10 miles away. On foot, through infected territory, with just the weapons we'd grabbed. "We walk," Miriam said. "We stay off the roads, move through the woods, take our time, make it there." So we walked. It took 2 days. 2 days of careful movement, hiding when we heard infected, rationing our meager water supply, sleeping in shifts in whatever shelter we could find, a shed one night, a drainage culvert the next. On the afternoon of day 98, we reached the settlement's outer checkpoint. The woman who checked us before recognized me. "You made it. Where's your car?" "Lost it. Long story." She radioed ahead. "They're in rough shape. Get medical ready." They brought us through the gates. People stared. We must have looked like hell. Roscoe met us at the visitor center. "Welcome home." Home. The word felt strange, but also right. They gave us housing, a cabin that had been a park ranger station, 5 bunks. Running water from their purification system, food from the communal kitchen. That night, I lay in an actual bed, in a room with other people, in a settlement with walls and guards. And I let myself relax for the first time in 98 days. We'd made it. The next weeks were adjustment, learning the settlement's rhythms, finding our roles. I joined the supply team. My experience with runs made me valuable. Miriam became part of the administrative group, helping coordinate resources. Niles worked in the medical tent. Garrett helped with fortifications and mechanical repairs. Finch, despite his nightmares, became one of the perimeter guards. The settlement wasn't perfect. There were disputes, resource shortages, personality conflicts, fear that the infected would eventually find us and overwhelm our defenses. But it was society. It was civilization. It was people working together to survive and maybe, eventually, to rebuild. Redmond found us on day 112. He showed up at the gates, exhausted, his radio equipment on his back. The settlement gave him a hero's welcome. His broadcasts had helped so many people survive. He continued broadcasting from the settlement. Now he had reliable power, a safe location, and most importantly, news to share about successful survival communities. This is Redmond, broadcasting from the State Park Settlement, day 115 of the outbreak. If you're out there, if you're alone, if you're scared, settlements exist. Communities are forming. You don't have to survive alone. Head for state parks, national forests, rural areas. Avoid cities. And never give up. Never stop trying. I helped with supply runs. We'd go out in teams of 4, armed and prepared to nearby towns, hitting stores, warehouses, anywhere that might have useful resources. One run, day 120, we found a library. The others were focused on practical supplies, but I convinced them to wait while I grabbed books. Novels, reference materials, children's books. Why? One of the team asked. We need food, medicine, fuel. We need reasons to be human too, I said. We need to remember there's more than just surviving. We brought back boxes of books. The settlement started a library. People read again. Parents read to their children. It was a small thing, but it mattered. The infected were always out there, always a threat. We lost people on runs. We had attacks on the perimeter. But we adapted. We learned. We survived. Day 150, a radio call came in. Another settlement, 60 miles west. They had extra medical supplies. We had extra food. We arranged a trade. The convoy, 3 vehicles, 12 people, set out at dawn. I was part of it. The trip was harrowing. Multiple encounters with infected. One vehicle broke down and we had to abandon it. But we made it. The other settlement was smaller than ours. Maybe 20 people. But they'd been smart. They'd fortified an old grange hall, created defensible positions, established gardens. We traded supplies, shared information, talked about maybe establishing regular contact, creating a network of settlements. On the drive back, I thought about how far we'd come. From hiding alone in that underground shelter to being part of an actual community. To maybe, possibly, starting to rebuild. The world wasn't fixed. The infected still outnumbered us by huge margins. There was no cure, no government cavalry coming to save us. It was just people like us, scraping out survival, trying to hold on to humanity. But we were doing it. Day 160, I was on perimeter duty when I saw something that made me stop. A family. A man, woman, and 2 kids. Approaching the settlement on foot, carrying backpacks, looking terrified and hopeful. I radioed it in. We brought them to the gates, checked them. They were clean. The woman was crying. Is this real? Is this actually a safe place? It's real, I told her. You made it. You're safe now. As I helped them through the gates, I thought about how I'd felt arriving here. That overwhelming relief. That sense of finally Finally being able to stop looking over your shoulder every second. I thought about Derek, who'd built the shelter that saved my life, about the dead man with the map who'd helped me even in death, about all the people who hadn't made it. This settlement, this fragile collection of survivors trying to build something, it was for them too. A testament that their struggles and their sacrifices meant something. That night, I volunteered for radio duty, helping Redmond with his broadcast. This is Redmond, broadcasting from the State Park Settlement, day 160 of the outbreak. If you're listening, if you're surviving, know that you're not alone. Settlements exist. Communities are rebuilding. Keep going. Keep fighting. Keep being human. We're still here, and we're not giving up. I added my own message. This is Vaughn. I survived 98 days alone before finding community. If I can make it, you can too. Don't give up. Find people. Work together. We can get through this. My voice going out over the airwaves. Maybe reaching someone hiding in a shelter like I'd been. Maybe giving them hope. The infection had taken our old world, but we were building a new one. Slowly, painfully, one day at a time, and I was going to be part of it. Day by day, breath by breath, survival by survival. We were still here, and we weren't done yet. The seasons changed. Winter came to the settlement. Snow made travel harder, but also seemed to slow the infected. We lost 3 people to a surprise attack in January. They'd gone outside the walls to check traps and got surrounded. We held a memorial service, said their names, planted markers. Every loss hurt. But we kept going. Spring brought new challenges. Food stores were depleting. We needed to expand the garden significantly if we wanted to be sustainable. Problem was, the best land for farming was outside the secure perimeter. We need to expand the walls, Roscoe proposed at a community meeting. Push the fence line out another 100 yards, include the southern field. That's a massive project, someone argued, and dangerous. We'd be exposed during construction. Then we do it in phases. We build smart. We post extra guards. But if we don't do it, we'll starve by next winter. The vote passed. Construction began. I was part of the security detail. We'd work in 2-hour shifts, some building, some watching. The infected came. They always came when there was noise. But we were ready. We'd set up kill zones, established firing positions, created barriers to funnel them into manageable groups. It took 6 weeks, but we did it. Expanded the walls, tripled our farmable land, started planting immediately. My hands, which had once pushed paper in a financial office, learned to work soil, to plant seeds, to build fences. I was becoming someone different, someone I might not have recognized 6 months ago. But I was alive. We were alive. On day 200, the radio crackled with an unexpected transmission. This is Captain Wexler, U.S. Army, broadcasting from Forward Operating Base Meridian. Any civilian survivors hearing this transmission, please respond. Repeat, this is the U.S. Army. We are establishing safe zones. We are working on a cure. Do not give up hope. The settlement erupted in chaos. The army, the government, they were still functioning. Redmond immediately tried to respond, but the transmission had ended. We monitored that frequency constantly, but heard nothing more for 3 days. Then, another broadcast. Forward Operating Base Meridian to civilian settlements. We are located at coordinates. He rattled off coordinates that placed the base about 200 miles northeast of us. We have supplies, medical facilities, and military protection. We are accepting refugees. Travel is dangerous. Travel in groups. Avoid major population centers. We will try to establish supply routes and patrols, but resources are limited. A military base. Real support. The possibility of a cure. The settlement held an emergency meeting. Should we attempt to reach the base? Should we stay put? Should we split up? Some going, some staying. 200 miles, Garrett said. That's weeks of travel on foot, through who knows what kind of infected territory. But it's the military, someone else argued. They have resources we can't even dream of. Or it's a trap, a woman named Constance countered. How do we know that transmission is real? Could be marauders using it to draw people out. The debate raged for hours. Finally, Roscoe made a decision. We send a scouting party, small group, 4 people. They'll attempt to reach the base and verify it's legitimate. If it is, they'll return with information and we can decide as a community what to do next. I volunteered. So did 3 others. A former cop named Ridge, a woman named Tallis, who'd been a park ranger, and a young guy named Beck, who'd proven himself on multiple supply runs. We spent a week preparing. Gathered weapons, supplies, maps. Plotted a route that would keep us away from major cities. Planned resupply points along the way. Day 208, we left at dawn. Roscoe stood at the gate as we departed. Come back, he said. However this goes, come back and tell us what you find. We will, I promised. The journey was brutal. We traveled on foot. Vehicles made too much noise and required fuel we couldn't spare for such a long trip. We moved fast, covering 15 to 20 miles a day when terrain allowed. The first week we passed through rural farmland. Saw occasional infected, but nothing we couldn't avoid or handle. Found a farm that still had livestock. Chickens had somehow survived, roosting in a barn. We took eggs, felt guilty about it, but needed the protein. Second week, the terrain got harder, more wooded. We were following back roads and trails. Twice we had close calls with large groups of infected. Once we had to hide in a culvert for 6 hours while a horde passed directly overhead. Beck got sick on day 15. Fever, chills. We feared infection, but it turned out to be just a bad cold. Still, we lost 2 days while he recovered enough to travel. Day 18, we found evidence of other survivors. A farmhouse that had been fortified. Crude walls built from tractor parts and lumber. But whoever had been there was gone, either dead or moved on. We salvaged what supplies we could and kept moving. Day 22, we reached a town that had been completely burned. Every building reduced to black shells. The fire had been recent enough that we could still smell it. We found bodies in the streets, infected that had been burned, but not before causing whatever catastrophe had happened here. People tried to make a stand, Tallis said quietly. Failed. We didn't linger. Day 25, we were crossing a river using an old railroad bridge when Ridge spotted something. Movement on the far bank. We hit the deck, weapons ready. 3 figures emerged from the tree line. They were wearing military fatigues, carrying rifles. They saw us and immediately took cover. Don't shoot, I yelled. We're civilians. We're trying to reach a fob meridian. One of them stood up cautiously. You're trying to reach the base? Yes. We're from a settlement 200 miles southwest. We heard the transmission. They approached. Up close, they looked rough, exhausted. Their uniforms were torn and filthy. I'm Corporal Marsh, the leader said. These are Privates Kinnan and Yates. We're from Meridian. We've been on patrol for 3 weeks. The base is real? Beck asked. It's real. Colonel Vex is in command. We've got maybe 200 military personnel and 400 civilian refugees. It's cramped, but it's secure. You're heading back? We are. You can travel with us. Be safer in a larger group. So we joined them. The last 20 miles were easier with military escort. They knew the terrain, knew where infected congregated, knew how to move tactically. Day 27, we saw it. Forward Operating Base Meridian. It had been a National Guard facility before the outbreak. Now it was a fortress. Concrete walls topped with machine gun nests. Guard towers every 50 yards. Military vehicles patrolling the perimeter. Actual helicopters visible beyond the walls. This was real military infrastructure, real power. The gates opened and we were escorted inside. The processing was thorough. Medical examination, decontamination shower, interrogation about where we'd come from, what we'd seen, whether we'd had contact with infected. Finally, we were cleared and taken to meet Colonel Vex. She was in her 50s, gray hair pulled back in a severe bun, eyes that had seen too much. She sat behind a desk in what had been the base commander's office. "You came from a settlement," she said, not a question. "Yes, ma'am. State Park, about 200 miles southwest. 43 people. We're farming. We have security. We're surviving." "Good. That's good. We need to know where the surviving communities are. We're trying to establish a network. Regular communications, mutual support. Your transmission mentioned a cure." Her expression darkened. "We're working on it. We've got some of the CDC's scientists here. They're making progress, but we're talking months at best. Maybe years. This thing..." She gestured vaguely at the window, at the world beyond. "This thing doesn't want to be cured. So what's your plan?" "Survival. Consolidation. We're establishing regional safe zones, clearing infected from strategic areas, rescuing survivors where possible, rebuilding infrastructure. It's going to be a long process, but it's doable." She pulled out a map, showed us the areas they controlled or were working to secure. It wasn't much, maybe 100 square miles of cleared territory. But it was something. "Your settlement," she said. "We'd like to establish regular contact. Monthly supply runs, radio check-ins. In exchange, we can provide military support if needed. Medical supplies, seeds, equipment. We're trying to rebuild a network of communities, strength in numbers. I'll take the proposal back to my people." "Good. We'll give you supplies for the return journey, radio equipment so you can communicate with us. And..." She hesitated. "And hope. Tell them there's a military presence. Tell them the government hasn't completely collapsed. Tell them we're fighting back." We spent 3 days at the base, saw the operations, talked to other survivors, learned about the broader situation. The outbreak had spread globally, every continent affected. Estimates put the surviving human population at maybe 10% of what it had been, maybe less. Communication between regions was sporadic at best. But pockets of organization were emerging. Military bases, fortified towns, island communities. People were adapting, fighting, surviving. On day 30, we left with packs full of supplies and hoped that maybe, just maybe, humanity would survive this. The return journey was faster. We knew the route, knew the dangers, made it back in 24 days. The settlement saw us coming and opened the gates. People crowded around, desperate for news. I found Roscoe and gave him the full report. "So, it's real," he said. "The military is actually trying to help." "They are, but they're stretched thin. We can't rely on them for everything. But knowing they exist, knowing there's a larger effort to rebuild, that matters." That night we held a community meeting. I told everyone what we'd seen, about the base, about Colonel Vex's plan, about the supplies and equipment we'd brought back. "So what do we do?" someone asked. "Do we stay here? Do we try to relocate to the base?" "We stay," Roscoe said firmly. "We've built something here, something good. We work with the military, but we maintain our independence. We don't put all our eggs in one basket." The community agreed. We'd stay. We'd grow. We'd become stronger. Day 255. I was working in the garden when Miriam found me. "Redmond wants you at the radio station. Says it's important." I washed the dirt off my hands and headed to the communications building. Redmond was at his equipment, looking excited. "Listen to this." He played back a recording. A voice. "This is the community of New Haven, broadcasting from the coastal region. We are a settlement of 112 survivors. We have established fishing operations, desalination for water, and defensible positions. We are reaching out to other communities to establish trade and mutual support networks." "There are more," Redmond said. "I've picked up transmissions from at least 8 different settlements in the past week. People are organized. Communities are talking to each other. We're building something." He pulled out a map covered in pins and notations. "Look, each pin is a known settlement. We're not alone. We're part of a network." I stared at the map. Settlements scattered across hundreds of miles. Small, isolated, but connected by radio. "We need to organize this better," I said. "Create a system, regular check-ins, information sharing, mutual aid." "Exactly. You up for it?" "What do you need?" "Help me build a proper communications network. Coordinate with other settlements. Create a database of resources and needs. Become a hub." I agreed. Over the next month, we worked to establish what we started calling the network. Regular radio schedules, shared information about infected movements, resource locations, safe routes. Other settlements joined. New Haven on the coast, Millbrook Heights in the mountains, the Fort, a military veteran community that had fortified an old army base, Green Valley, an agricultural settlement that had superior farming knowledge. By day 300, we had 17 settlements in the network, roughly 800 people total. We started coordinating supply runs, sharing expertise. Some settlements had medical knowledge, others had engineering skills. We pooled resources. The infected were still out there, still dangerous. But we were adapting faster than they were. We learned their patterns, developed better tactics, created early warning systems. We even started clearing operations. Organized groups from multiple settlements would target a specific area, systematically eliminating infected, clearing buildings, making zones safe. It was slow, dangerous. We lost people. But gradually, carefully, we reclaimed territory. Day 340, I was part of a clearing operation in a small town 15 miles from the settlement. 20 people from 4 different communities working together. We'd cleared 3 blocks when we found them. A group of survivors, 7 people, including 3 children, hiding in a grocery store basement. They'd been there for weeks, running out of food, too scared to move. We brought them back to the settlement, got them fed, cleaned, housed, integrated them into the community. One of the children was maybe 5 years old. She'd been underground so long she'd forgotten what the sun looked like. Watching her step outside, seeing her face as she looked up at the sky, that made everything worth it. That night at the communal dinner, I sat with my people. Miriam was teaching a class on inventory management. Niles was training new medical assistants. Garrett was working on a water purification upgrade. Finch was on security detail, grown confident and capable. We'd come so far. From that desperate flight from my little rental house to this thriving community. From hiding underground to building a future. The world wasn't fixed. Might never be completely fixed. The infected still outnumbered us. Resources were scarce. Every day was a struggle. But we were human. We adapted. We cooperated. We survived. And sitting there, surrounded by people who'd become family, eating food we'd grown ourselves in a settlement we'd built and defended, I realized something. We weren't just surviving anymore. We were living. And that made all the difference. I thought about Derek, about that night he showed up at my door and offered me a chance, about his foresight in building that shelter, about his sacrifice. "Thank you," I whispered. To him, to everyone who hadn't made it, to everyone who'd given us the chance to be here. A young girl, one of the ones we'd rescued earlier, ran past, laughing, playing with other children. In a world full of death, children were playing. That was hope. Real, tangible hope. Day 365. 1 year since the outbreak. We held a memorial service, said the names of everyone we'd lost, planted a garden in their honor, each plant representing a person who'd given their life so we could continue. Then we had a celebration. Music. Someone had found a guitar and another person could play piano. Dancing, food, laughter. For one night, we weren't apocalypse survivors. We were just people. Living. Being human. Redmond broadcasted it all. Let other settlements hear the music, the laughter. Proof that life continued. That joy was still possible. I stood at the edge of the celebration, looking out over the settlement. The walls we'd built, the gardens growing, the lights burning in windows, people moving about, secure alive. This was year 1. We'd survived year 1. How many more years until we truly rebuilt? Until the infected were contained or eliminated? Until we had cities again, civilization, all the things we'd lost? I didn't know. Maybe decades. Maybe never. But we had this. We had now. We had each other. And standing there, watching my community celebrate survival, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Pride. We'd done this. Against impossible odds. Against an enemy that didn't tire, didn't negotiate, didn't stop. We'd survived. We'd thrived. We'd remained human. And tomorrow, we'd wake up and do it again. Day by day. Building, growing, living. The outbreak had taken our world. But we were building a new one. And it started here. In this settlement. With these people. On this day. 1 year down. A lifetime to go. But we were ready. We were strong. We were alive. And we weren't giving up. Not ever. The celebration continued into the night. At some point, Roscoe found me, handed me a cup of something that vaguely resembled beer. One of the engineering types had figured out how to brew from our surplus grain. To survival, he said, raising his cup. To more than survival, I corrected. To life. We drank. The infected were out there beyond our walls. The world was broken. The future was uncertain. But in this moment, in this place, humanity endured. And that was enough.